Hey, John, welcome back to another working session, man. Looking forward to catching up on all things Editor Ninja. But before we get into that, how are things with you personally? How are things out there in the Mountain West?
Good, James. Yeah, man, things are good. Good to see you. Looking forward to hearing about Castaway as well. Things are good out here in Denver. It's actually a cooler, overcast day today. Yeah, man, things are busy. Just with life and work and all of that. I mean, two companies and leaving tonight for a week-long trip up to Canada. Going to a conference, a SaaS Academy conference next week. Going to Whistler for a few days. So bit of travel, and then right when I get back, we're moving. So probably by the time this episode airs, my wife and I will have moved up to our house in the mountains for the rest of the summer because we just extended a job offer to a summer nanny, so like 10, 12 weeks this morning. So that's exciting. So we're actually going to realize that dream, that goal of trying out mountain life for the summer. So, but yeah, man, that's what's going on the life front. Just a ton of stuff, and business is doing what it does. So looking forward to diving in, if I can talk today. Looking forward to diving in to the updates. How about you? How are things your end? How's Ohio?
Ohio's good, man. And we were talking a little bit offline about this interesting observation I've made where in the winter, it feels like I have a lot of energy and a lot of momentum behind my professional life because there's not much to do here in Ohio. It's snowy, it's cold, you don't get out as much. But here in the summer, it's almost like a role reversal where spending a lot more time with the family, spending a lot more time outdoors, going to the pool, going on hikes and stuff like that. Health habits are feeling really strong right now. So on the personal front, there's a lot of energy and a lot of momentum there. But maybe at work or with the side hustles, things feel a little bit more stagnant because you're just away from the keyboard more. And there's nothing wrong with that per se. But it is a perception of kind of being behind the eight ball in some ways. So it's that constant friction between like wanting to be an excellent father, husband, but also be an excellent, team member, professional, leader, business owner kind of thing. And sometimes you just can't have both
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, right? Or if
Yep.
you do, then you got to get creative about how you make that happen.
Yep. Yep. Someone, I think it was Randy Zuckerberg, told me one time. She was like, uh, basically like, there are really like five kind of core parts of life, right? There's health, there's family, there's faith, there's business, there's finances, like, all these things, professional life, I guess, finances. She's basically like, pick three that you can focus on at any one time. And I like the idea of like building up a bank, like a kind of a balance in, the others, or I guess relationships is in there, right? Family, I guess, is in there.
Hmm.
Kind of you build up a bank in one, right? So right now you're building up your bank in your family, but the and your health, but like the other stuff, right? Work, etc. Like maybe isn't getting as much. It's coasting a little bit because it's summer and people are on vacation and all that, as you were saying offline. But then you've made investments into the family, so then when work kicks back up after Labor Day, right? Then you're not going to make as many deposits there, and you can kind of draw from that balance, right? So you never want to draw something down to zero, but you kind of have a balance to draw down a little bit while you build up the other one that has been drawn down. So yeah, man,
Yeah.
I hear you on that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's cool to hear that you're going to spend the summer up at the cabin. How off grid is that place? Is it truly remote, or is it more like one of those? I don't know how to characterize it. Like kind of suburban camping kind of thing. Like glamping, I think is what they call it, the glamorous camping or whatever. Where it's not totally off grid, but
Yeah.
it feels rustic and it's a nice getaway from city life, right?
So it is. It's about 20 minutes south of Breckenridge on the south side of the pass there called Hoosier Pass. And it's not off grid. It is on a well. It is on, septic system, like that sort of stuff. It's an acre and a half of land that's heavily wooded. But I mean, we call it the cabin. It's a house. It's a three bed, two
Yeah.
bath, like 1,900 square foot house. It's nice. We just got the floors redone. So, the one like kind of comfortable part of it is it's satellite internet. So we can't really do Zoom calls and such from there. So we're actually, my wife and I are both getting co-working spaces over in Breckenridge. So we'll be driving over the pass every day. And I'll be working from one co-working space. She'll likely be working from another one just because we have kind of different needs. But it's exciting, man. I mean, we're up there pretty much every weekend. I mean, really like Thursday night through Sunday, like afternoon now anyway. So we're kind of just flipping our life and spending most of the time up there and coming back to Denver, a couple weekends a month versus right now we're in Denver and we're up there most weekends. So just kind of a
Yeah.
short term test, see how we like it. We have no plans to leave the Denver area like permanently. But spending a summer there sounds great, especially because we can escape the freaking 105 degree heat here in Denver, which we get in the summer. So up there it'll be 70 degrees every day. So
Yeah, little
it's a good
altitude always
spot.
helps.
Yeah,
Clear your
yeah,
mind.
exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Well, it's great to see something like that. That sounds like it's been a goal or a dream for a while come to fruition, partially through the work that you've been doing with Editor Ninja in addition to Credo. So that's
Yeah.
awesome to hear.
Yeah, it's good.
I think I was the one that brought the icebreaker today, and something that I guess is top of mind for me right now. Just kind of summarize this as bootstrapped marketing ideas. I think when you're starting a new business, especially a service business like this that has some cash flow considerations and stuff like that, you want to attract more attention. You want to drive leads, but maybe finances are a little tighter than a more established business. And so you got to find ways to make every marketing dollar count. It's not like you can afford to throw thousands of dollars at something experimental. You want to have a reasonable level of confidence that it's actually going to work. So I feel like we're probably not alone in feeling that kind of constraint where it's like, yeah, I need to juice sales somehow, but I don't want to flush money down the drain because every dollar counts, especially this early in the journey. So I thought maybe we could brainstorm, not necessarily about specific tactics, although I'm happy to get into that, but like how should people be thinking about marketing and lead generation in the early days as they're trying to get a new business off the ground, potentially with a limited budget or limited resources, right?
So why don't you tell us what have you been thinking about since you brought the topic? Seems it's been top of
Yeah.
mind for you. I've got thoughts, of course, but let's hear what you've got to say.
Yeah, I think at a conceptual level, you know, there's great marketing tactics like content and SEO that can be an outstanding foundation for a sustainable level of attention over time. But I think if you're in this particular scenario that I just described, where it's like I need sales in the door now, and then I can invest in content as a long-term play. But for right now, I need to like put a dollar in and maybe within 30 or 60 days, like get more than a dollar back from that in some way. So I think you kind of have to write off some of those things that take a little bit more to actually show results. And I think where I would start, at least where I'm trying to start with Castaway, is figuring out like where does my target market hang out, and not just the hobbyists or the users, but like the decision makers. Where are the people who actually run podcasts and make decisions about how to promote them and how to grow that show and how to fund them and those kinds of things? Where are they at online? And then I start to brainstorm like, what are some creative ways that I can get myself and or Castaway in front of those people? And what are the messages that they want to hear that seem compelling or interesting or make them want to engage with our brand? So, I think like a lot of people will default to paying for advertisement as the easy button. I've talked about that on this show. I'm not saying I won't do it, but I do think there are ways that don't require really any kind of funding up front. You can just get in there with like some sweat equity, some time and effort, and still see a lot of results. So like I'm thinking about things like workshops and webinars, which I know you've done a few of, even just kind of cold outreach and like outbound sales, discovery calls, talking to people one-on-one. Those can result in new clients, and then trying to drum up things like referrals. So I don't know. I'm just thinking like broadly, this could be categorized as like hustle, but what are the things that you can do to first figure out where your target market's hanging out? Second, figure out what kind of messages or problems they're having that you can put in front of them. And third, how to actually get those messages or get your solution in front of them in a way that respects their attention, but also tries to achieve the ultimate goal of converting them from a prospect into a customer, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think all that makes sense. I would actually start at a slightly higher level, which is, as marketers, as entrepreneurs, we think about scale and more leads and like that sort of stuff. But I kind of want to I've adjusted my mindset because like, Credo, we're getting hundreds of leads a month, right? Like, and it's built up over time. It's built up over years versus like, I think about it with EditorNinja and I'm like, oh man, I wish I had more demos, but I'm like, I have 8 to 10 a month right now. It's about what I can handle. And we can about onboard 3 new customers a month. That's about my limit right now. So like if I had 100 leads, I'd figure it out, right? And we'd make it work. And honestly, like Credo the team would run Credo and I would work on EditorNinja. But I think first of all, like, just kind of keeping in mind that like we're not looking for huge volume at this stage, right? Like, I mean, just like 5 demos a month could be game changing, right? 2 new customers a month could be game changing as long as you're not having churn, right? So I think that's kind of where I start, just with that like mindset. It keeps me from being like anxious and wanting things to go faster than really what they should at this point for me, just kind of the reality of my life. But at the same time, like I'm also not investing in marketing, right? I am investing in marketing. And I actually think I agree. There's like there's the short term versus the medium term versus the long term, payoffs of different campaigns and different channels, just like there's, bottom, middle, and top funnel of content. There are these different levels. And for me, my approach, at least with EditorNinja, is I am investing in SEO. So I think entrepreneurs early stages should invest in really what they know, right? And spend what you have. Time, money, expertise are kind of the three things that you can spend. And so for me, like I have an expertise in SEO and in inbound marketing, so I'm going to invest in that. And because I can put the time into it, I make the time to put into that, to create content, etc. And I was looking at a friend's analytics recently and was like, wow, EditorNinja already has 3x their traffic, and they've been around for like 4 years. And I've really been working on increasing traffic to EditorNinja for like 4 months. So like, okay, I know what I'm doing, right? That to me, that's an easy thing. And that just kind of grows over time, right? That's my base, but I'm also putting a little bit into advertising just to try to nail our messaging, et cetera, which helps out with the SEO stuff. But then like the quicker term stuff, as you said, and I actually agree that it would be a good channel for you, like early on, is podcasts and webinars and free trainings for different communities and that sort of stuff. So potentially trying to get onto shows that have your audience, right? I mean, I think about like Travis Chappell from Guestio, right? Which is literally all about finding guests for your podcast. Like that's what his SaaS does. So like you should be connecting with people like that, potentially getting on their shows or sponsoring it, right? Like, take a lark and take a couple grand and, sponsor a couple of episodes, right? Because like people listening to that show are people that are doing podcasts and are looking to grow their podcast because they're looking to get more guests, right? So like that's your ideal audience right there. So I think that would, that's kind of the shorter term, probably short to medium term. While, for me, it's you invest in you have to invest in longer term stuff now to see the payoff in the medium to long term. But don't just do that at the expense of not doing the shorter term stuff, which is going to get you quicker traction, get you customers in the door. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to experience churn, but you're going to nail your offer more so that when those medium to long term things are kicking in, then you're off to the races, right? That's when you hit that kind of inflection growth point. Is how I think about it.
Yeah, I think I agree with pretty much all that. Like when you get those first 8 demos a month, I think is the number you threw out. That's I think what I'm trying to solve for is like you might have to hustle first to get those, and then once you have those operating at a margin that's 20-30%, or in the software world a lot higher, you reinvest those profits into the long-term stuff, the content. But I think in the earliest days, when you're trying to find those first 10 customers or whatever the right number is for your business, I do think there's probably better potential to do kind of like hand-to-hand combat in some ways, right? Like to go find those people face-to-face in some way and convert them into customers. And then those first 5 customers, the profit from those fund those long-term investments. Although I'm curious with like EditorNinja, you said you worked on the content side and driving traffic to the site organically for a few months now. I'm kind of under the impression that the sandbox is typically on the like 6 to 9 month time horizon for a brand new domain, a brand new site. Did you find some magical way to accelerate that? Or is that kind of what you're characterizing, I guess, when you say a few months, it's like half a year or so?
No, the site's been live for 2 years. So I escaped the sandbox pretty quick. I escaped the sandbox. I wasn't really working on it. My approach to working on these sorts of projects is like, I'll launch a site, see what it does. And I mean, the whole reason why I really started working on EditorNinja is, I was just needed something to, energize me with work, but also EditorNinja had done $1,000 in revenue in 2021, and I'd put like 15 hours total into it. So, it's the site was already live. So now it's just been a matter of cranking up content and all that. And, and now it's marketing. It's actually marketing it, right? I've got the content. I've got content in place. I've got, the technical stuff is pretty solid. So at this point, it's all about getting the word out there, building backlinks, that sort of stuff. So, we're not doing any sort of backlink strategies or anything other than like podcasts and guest posts and being being a quoted expert and like that sort of stuff. So, but once again, it's a medium to long-term play. So, but it's working, I'm getting more traffic and getting demos and all that, stranger money, people I don't really know, paying us money to do stuff. So it's working, right? But it's just longer term, trust the process versus the podcast, the free trainings, the webinars, that sort of stuff. Getting on my first like physical stage, right? Kind of talking around the topic of hiring and outsourcing and all that next Monday. So in front of about, I think it's under 100, but not too far under 100, like software entrepreneurs. It's that's my strategy right now. But I'm also able to leverage my name and my connections to do that sort of stuff, right? So if you don't have a known name, you don't have a lot of connections, it's going to be a lot harder, right? So you're going to have to put in a lot more time, a lot more effort to establish yourself as that expert in order to then get these speaking engagements, expert AMAs, that sort of stuff. So it's a cheat code when you've been doing it for a while.
I will say, as somebody who's organized a few of those events, like if you don't have a big name, but you come to me with a kick-ass deck or topic, and you've clearly done some legwork to put together a compelling talk presentation, then you can still make it. So it might be a longer shot, and you're going to have to sell yourself, but like you may have to build the deck up front. You may even have to record a private, like just do a screen share and give the pitch and send that to somebody. But if the material is good, you can still get yourself on that stage, on that podcast, in that webinar, whatever you want to do, even though you don't have the notoriety. So I would say don't let that hold you back. But okay, cool. So the workshops, the content, all that's working at Editor Ninja. What else is working at Editor Ninja these days since the last time we talked? What's going on your side of the world?
Well, I think last time I mentioned that I shipped out a new pricing page a while ago and killed our demo flow. So I moved that back, changed it back to what it was before, and demos are back. So that's good. Had some more of those scheduled. That's exciting. So I've been doing a few of those. I think I said last time that we churned out 2 customers, but one is like semi-churned in that they still have like a balance of words in a word bundle, but also they have like kind of a deeper need. They need someone to actually like a subject matter expert to review the content that they're getting written. So I'm figuring out what that looks like, and how to charge for that. So getting kind of close to testing that one out. But I'm also considering, some other like changes there. And I've launched some new like lead tests, like lead capture tests and such, based off of some conversations with some friends kind of in similar businesses, that I'm not prepared to talk about those publicly yet, but they're ongoing. So if you go click around the site, you might come across them and, see what I'm testing out. But wins on the kind of operations side is the developer I've been working with. He's actually based in Paraguay. So been working with him through Codable.io, which is vetted. It's a vetted WordPress developer marketplace. Super good. And it's an interesting place, James, because I could do the work. I could create this stuff. I could create the short codes, like pull in the advanced custom fields, like that sort of stuff. But I'm really like, I'm doing a lot more of that for Credo right now because the need is there. Because we got some big stuff coming up there, but I could do the work on Editor Ninja, but I'm really trying to lean into getting others to do things for me. So like I could do this. It would take me 3 hours to do it, but at this point, I would rather go pay him $250 to do it, right? Than me spend those 3 hours, just because time is my scarcest commodity at this point. And then also on that same line, I got my managing editor, Sophia, is doing all of the returning of documents to customers, which is awesome. It basically buys back 3 to 5 hours a week from my work week, by her doing that. Right. And, so that's amazing. And that's really like, that process is really working. There's some other like workflow stuff that I'm working on that'll allow us to, that'll allow me to get out of like assigning of documents even, which will be great. But it's really nice to see like, be putting together a team early enough on, that we can, I'm not the one doing all the things, which is really nice because I've got a lot of other stuff going on. So yeah, that's really what's going on, man. And on the sales and marketing side, I'm really just doubling down on podcasts, guest posts, free webinars, free trainings, that sort of stuff to other people's audiences, not to like the Editor Ninja audience or whatever, and I am leveraging my audience with Credo. We send out like an agency newsletter, marketing agency newsletter every Thursday. So when we don't have another, like, something else to promote, we promote Editor Ninja. So, I'm leveraging that. I learned that lesson. But, really doubling down on the education side and looking to build out those partnerships and such. And it seems to be working because yeah, talking to a couple people recently, they were like, "You're everywhere these days." They're like, "I see you everywhere. I go to my favorite podcast and people are talking about you. You're a guest," like that sort of stuff. I'm like, "All right, this is working," and I've got a bunch more queued up coming out in the next couple months as well. So yeah, so it's starting to work, as I kind of push on it, but. Yeah, that's kind of what's going on, and I guess I will say, like, 'cause this is the first one we've recorded in June. Hit our revenue goal of $6,000 in revenue in May. So it was about a 20 couple percent growth month over month, which is great. And we edited 209,000 words in May. So that is basically 10x growth from January. Revenue is 6x growth, but editing volume is 10x growth. So yeah, it's exciting. It's moving. I think June is going to be slower just because of just the realities of the current economy and summertime and all that stuff. But so I'm kind of like preparing for, like, okay, it's come up, and it's gonna go flat. Basically the same agencies, same customers as Credo. Like, it's gonna go flat for the summer and then it'll kick back up after Labor Day. So I'm just kind of investing ahead of that curve to really aim to capitalize on that once things kick off in mid September.
Yeah.
So
and headcount's up too, right? Like headcount's got to be double what it was. I mean, we're talking about small numbers, but to go along with the word count growth and the revenue growth, I think you've had 3 new editors at least, right? So probably gone
hired
from
3
a team
new
of
in
1 or
May.
2
So
up to 6.
we're at 5 editors. So yeah, we're a team of 6 plus a couple other like developer, contractor, and that sort of stuff. So yeah, but yeah, 5 editors. So yeah, we've 3x over 3x headcount, 10x words edited, and 6x. Is that right? 4x revenue, I guess, from January. So, yeah. So it's moving, right? I mean, it's doing what I want it to do. It's doing what we started this podcast to talk about. So, there's obviously the bumps and all that. It's never fun to have churn, but if 2 people churn and you get 2 new ones on, so like end up even number of customers, but the new ones are better fit customers than the previous ones. So, that's all. It's all good, man. What's going on at
Yeah, it
Castaway?
sounds like a lot of the same stuff that I'm dealing with at Castaway. So let's talk about that real quick.
Yeah. What's going on?
Let's see. So on the hiring front, I think last time I talked about bringing on somebody in a part-time capacity to do like kind of a marketing / operations support kind of role. Basically just keep everything moving through the production funnel so that I don't have to give 100% of my energy to that, and I can shift more into the sales and marketing realm. That person is in house right now and in kind of what I would call like a probationary period, one of those like, hey, let's work together for a month or 2. If things are going well, we'll make it a long-term commitment. If things aren't going well, we're both in agreement that, like, if it's not a good fit, we'll part ways or whatever. So that's good. And I think, in the spirit of, it's been a while since I've read Built to Sell, but my current thinking is like, if I had to build this business so that it could run without me for an indeterminate amount of time, like multiple weeks, right? What would that look like? And I'm trying to, get to that point as quickly as comfortable, because I think that's just a great place to be. And I think my core competency would be in filling the funnel and having those, doing those marketing strategies, and then also having those sales conversations. So that requires a lot of the operational stuff to be, to your point. I could do it and it might take me 3 hours a week to do it. But would those 3 hours happen today, or would they happen in a few days? And if I pay somebody else, those 3 hours will probably happen today or tomorrow. And that client gets their results much faster. It's a better experience for them. They're more likely to refer somebody else or stick around. And so the upside of paying for someone else to handle that instead of being precious about it and keeping it to myself, it feels like the balance is in favor of hiring. So I think that's the first commonality I noticed between the 2 of us. And then the other one is really on the sales and marketing side. I called it learning more about what our right fit customers look like for Castaway. I think that, like, I found that through hands-on practice with some of our active clients, like, listen, I love all of our clients, always have with all the service businesses that I make. I rarely ever have a bad client, but there are certain aspects that make somebody maybe not a perfect fit for Castaway. And I've learned that if somebody has a brand new show, or they're saying, hey, we're doing these interviews right now with our customers or with our clients, and we want to convert it into a podcast, we're probably not a great fit for that, because for a number of reasons, but not the least of which is, like, they don't have any of the groundwork laid to successfully produce promo assets. They don't have a style guide. They might not even have a show title. They might not have a logo. They don't have a headshot for the host or the guests. Like, just a lot of those, fundamental elements that it's required to produce what we do just don't exist yet. And so, those kind of folks maybe aren't a perfect fit, or shows that experiment with a bunch of different formats. You and I, we pretty much have the same format every week. It's just two guys chatting about their business, side by side, whatever, in a mastermind kind of format. Other shows, they experiment. They'd had somebody come in, they're like, hey, somebody did a workshop for our customers and they did a screen share. Can we do something with that? Or, this one is an episode where I was interviewed by somebody else. And so like, we want to put their show's branding on it and promote my appearance there. And I'm just like, that kind of stuff, maybe not a great fit for Castaway, right? Like, we need consistency because we stay profitable by having stuff that's repeatable time and time again. And switching up the format, switching up the number of speakers, switching up a screen share versus not a screen share, all that stuff adds complexity, and frankly it adds time to the production, so that eats into profitability. And so yeah, I think mostly operations is hiring, sales and marketing is learning what a right fit customer looks like, so that not that we're going to kick anybody out, but as those folks turn over or churn, we know what to look for as we try to fill that slot with somebody new, and just getting a little bit of clarity around what that person or what that show or what that organization looks like.
Yeah, that's interesting. How do you handle kind of I think this is probably an interesting discussion for some bootstrappers, is if someone's not a great fit, how do you handle that?
So, feedback, first and foremost, communication, honest, open, transparent, coming from a place with good intentions. So, we could hum right along and just say, yeah, I'll take this on and we'll make it happen because we want the revenue. But I don't think that's fair to the customer. I don't think that's fair to our team to ask them to deviate from the standard protocol. So generally, I give honest, open feedback and say, hey, we can do this. Because of the scope, it's going to take more time. It's going to be a little bit more money. It's going to look a little different, whatever the case may be. But I just say, if you want to do this as a one-off, here are the terms of what that would be. And usually it's a little bit of money, a little bit of time on top of it. We'll have to go back and do some new templates. But in general, we're going to need all future episodes to be more like, this other option that you've done with us in the past. And like I said, I would never kick anybody out the door. But if it's something where a show pivots to a different format and they're going to keep that format going forward, we can adjust. But if we're going to bounce around, I'm going to have to say, like, look, we're only going to be able to do your interviews. And if that means we have to go to 2 episodes a month instead of 4 and reduce your subscription revenue because of that, that's okay. So I think it's really about like proactively communicating about this and giving feedback about not just that it won't work, but why it won't work. And here's why: because it takes us longer. And most people who are going to be customers of a service business like ours, they're business owners too, and they understand, and they have the same kind of frustrations and complexities inside of their business, and they know what's profitable and what's not. And if somebody went outside of scope in their business, they would either raise their prices or they would, part ways. And so I think they get it, but you have to give them the full context. You can't just say, no, we can't do that. And you also can't just say, yeah, we'll make that happen, because that's not fair to your team and that doesn't protect your bottom line.
Yep. No, I think that totally makes sense. Yeah, I mean, the being open is absolutely the right strategy there. My take is usually like, I just don't, if it's someone if it's a prospect, and they're not a good fit, right? And for EditorNinja, it's like, if their copy needs like a ton of work, like more than, what like copy editing and proofreading can give them, I just don't pitch them, right? Like especially if they do a test document, I just send it back and I'm like, good luck. Right? I just don't pitch them. So like that's one, you don't have to pitch everyone that comes in, right? I mean, we do the work for them. We do what we need to do to clean it up. But and they get back like a much better piece of content. But if it's just going to be, I mean, yeah, if it's just going to take a ton more work, right? It's just not worth it. Like with this, with kind of a productized service, especially if like they need more and they can't or won't pay more. It's just not worth it. Versus if they're not a great fit, I mean, yeah, I go as well to the to the just transparency around it, and just have a conversation and be like, hey, is this what you need, right? Is this like actually fitting your need? It seems like you need this other thing. And they're, they're very like grateful for that. So Yeah. And then the other one is like, some people, and you and I are both kind of fortunate in that we both have like, good other jobs. Um, and if, someone, for me, if someone's like not a great kind of cultural fit for the business either, I am like, some people like if you're hurting for revenue and you need that revenue to do something in life, do whatever you can to keep people on, right? And get to the point where like you don't have to do that. You and I are both at the point where we don't have to do that to keep on people that are the wrong fit. And so I disagree with them. If they're like, hey, I don't think this is the right fit for me, I'm like, cool. If I agree with them, right? And, that is not the right fit. Like, I don't try to like make it fit or something like that. I used to with, with Credo and like when I had to in the past. And now I'm just like, yeah, I agree. I don't think it's a great fit, right? Like you need more management. You have all these questions, everything's drama, like not a fit. Sorry. Like that's just not the business where I'm trying to build. So, I think we as entrepreneurs need to give ourselves that, permission.
Yeah. And I would say in the interest of transparency, I think this stems from the fact that you've been doing these demo calls and these sales calls, and we had a dedicated conversation around like, I'm trying to be as hands off as possible because I have this 9 to 5 day job where I work for somebody else. And so having a bunch of calls littered throughout my calendar between 9 and 5 doesn't always work. So I was trying to do zip message, like asynchronous communication. And so I didn't have the right vetting up front, and I was kind of taking people for what they submitted in writing, or I was just letting them purchase directly and they would just check out. Right. And then they had this onboarding process. It's like, here's your checklist, provide these things. And so part of that is the strategy that I chose to use for bringing somebody on board as a new client and not putting up the right filters or stage gates or whatever to make sure that at each stage of the funnel, like they were increasingly qualified before I took their money. Right. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I think in the early days of Castaway, I had a very clear idea of who we would work best with. And that was typically established shows that don't necessarily need a direct ROI from the podcast. Like a lot of service businesses would be a good fit because they know the podcast passively will generate leads, lead or high ticket, and they'll recoup their Castaway investment, but they might not be able to draw a solid line between Castaway and that outcome. And then working on somebody's back catalog. What I didn't want to do is work in between the day that you record something and the day you need to publish something. I don't want to try to cram Castaway activities into those 7 days because we just don't have a turnaround time for video editing that suits that kind of pressure and timeline. We are here to give your back catalog a second life. What I did not do is stick to that, right? That was my original vision as what a best fit one client looked like. And I did kind of the thing where I was like, yeah, it'd be nice to have a bundled sale right now though, or it'd be nice to have a recurring subscription. And I know that they're just getting off the ground, but they seem to have a lot of the pieces, maybe not everything, but they've got 70% of the pieces we need. So let's roll with it. So my accommodation of that, or failure to stick to my guns in what I thought an ideal client profile was is kind of coming back around to bite me. So if anybody else is experiencing that, like you're certainly not alone, because I've been through this in several iterations, and I still waver from time to time because it is nice to, hey, I want to hire that video editor, and it'd be great to get another $1,500 a month to cover some of that expense. And maybe it's a B- client in terms of grading qualification. I'll go ahead and take those on, and it might work for a month or two, but then on month 3, month 4, it starts to fall apart and you got to make adjustments.
Yep. No, I think that's I think that's smart. And I'm curious about what you're saying there about the like self checkout thing. I wonder if there's like maybe a little bit more of like a filter that you could put in place to like further qualify them out. Martel calls it a funnel filter, where it's like how quickly do you expect content, how far out are you, some sort of like question that lets you know if they're going to be a good fit or not, right? So not doing the like last minute, hey, I need this edited by 4 p.m. today and it's 3 p.m. like go away. But something like how far out are you recording podcast episodes, right? Like couple days, couple weeks, right? Couple months, because then that tells you if they record it now and they're not publishing it till mid-July, you've got plenty of time, right? Like it gives your team the time to turn around all the assets, et cetera, and have them be ready to go. So, you could do that. I was just looking at my analytics around like the self-serve thing. It's actually really interesting because I I did like roll out like just a link on the pricing page about like, or just sign up, right? Click here to get a subscription and sign up. And we've had like, I mean, Google Analytics says we've had a 700% increase in page views from 2 to 16. So like not, nothing huge, but I also haven't had anyone buy it. But I think about like Design Pickle, that they went from like, Russ selling everybody to then self-serve for a long time, but had big problems with churn. And now they're back to actually doing sales calls, but their pricing has also gone from like 280 some a month to like minimum $495 a month, I think. So they can actually like, $5K for a year. So they can actually $6K for a year. So they can actually afford to pay salespeople at that level, right? Versus at like 270, 280 a month, you really can't. It's like right on the bubble. So, yeah, that's interesting that you've learned that same thing, and I'm kind of testing it out for my business as well. But it seems to be like for like higher ticket, productized service, you kind of need to be priced high enough that you can also do sales.
Yeah, and I think that I'm heading in that direction. One of the pieces I think I forgot to mention as an update this week is I'm working in this piece of software called Service Provider Pro, spp.co, and it's kind of like an e-commerce solution specifically for service businesses and
I've heard good things
that have kind of so I'm looking at the back end there, and I think where my gut is telling me to head is for add-on services, like the blog post, that I kind of want to get out of that operation because there's just a lot of subjectivity around the quality of a blog post, right? You don't know my industry as well as I do. I'm like, well, yeah, but you also aren't publishing consistently, but that's neither here nor there. But like some of those add-on services, maybe they are self-serve, right? Because it's like, here's add on another $250 to get a blog article from this episode, right? So I don't necessarily need to qualify somebody for that. But for the higher ticket stuff, the subscription stuff, the comprehensive service packages, I do think I'm going to put either, some kind of quiz-like functionality where it's like, hey, you have to answer the right way to these 3 questions before you can even see a checkout form, or set up sales calls or something like that. Because in my mind now, I'm like, so the goal is to make 6 figures from Castaway in the first year. So do I want to have 10 clients at $1,000 a month or 4 clients at $2,500 a month, And so it's like, I think I'd rather have option B, where it's fewer clients, higher ticket, more hands-on. And then to do that the right way, you need to qualify them at a higher level. And I think the only way to do that is to inject myself into that process versus self-serve. So
can I push back there, or just like give a twist? What if that's not an either or? Like, yeah, it's nice to say like, would I rather have this or this? But what if it was like $5,000 a month ones, and then two $2,500 a month ones, right? Because that gets you to the same amount. As the example that you just gave, and then you can kind of do the $1,000 a month, or even like $500 a month, right? Like, what could you deliver for that people would just check out and you can just deliver, right? And it just the system just runs because you don't have to do sales calls for those, probably, and you shouldn't, honestly, is my take, or at least like a one-off, like buy a one-off, like $500 something. And then you can focus your time on sales for the bigger ones, but you're still getting revenue in the door that you can deliver. I'm thinking about this because at Credo recently, we're like fairly high ticket for our pipeline agency, $1,700 to $5,000 a month. Then we have like a downsell subscription, and then free like lead feed that you can pay per lead. But I recently started selling again these what I call SEO opportunity analyses, where basically like you can pay us $500 and I will go, and I'm doing one a week. I'm actually scheduled out through the end of July right now. I launched it on Tuesday, and I had 8 booked, so $4,000 in the pocket within 36 hours of relaunching it. And obviously still have to deliver it, but and I had people pinging me privately like, dude, you should like raise your rates. You need to like triple this. Or someone was like, you need to 10x it. Why not sell it for $5,000? You're delivering that value. I'm like, cause I'd have to do sales. If I sell a $5,000 like audit, like I know I'm gonna have to put at least like 10 hours into it. I'm selling it for $500. Like I'm putting 2 to 3 hours into it, and they're getting something awesome. Like they're getting something that is super useful to them at that level. But like, I don't have to, like $5,000, I'm gonna have to send contracts and all of that. With this, they're just putting down a credit card and reserving their spot. So like, how could you do something? I'm thinking about that. I don't know what it is for EditorNinja. I have no idea. I think it's our like single documents, honestly, which I can probably do a lot more work on the conversion side. But for you, I would think about like, what is the what's something you could do like for Castaway, that's like lower ticket like that people could just buy, and then like the people that are a really good fit off of that, right, and they're asking for more, then you can hop on a call. But they basically qualified themselves to be willing to pay because they've already paid you something without even needing to talk to someone, and they got it back and they're asking for more, which means they're happy with the work.
Yeah, I'm thinking that might be, because I think the real shakeout there will be something like, hey, add-on services or one-off sales is 20% of revenue. And then these tier one clients that are $2,500 a month, they're 40% of revenue, right? And then the difference is made up by these kind of mid-range clients that are not quite the comprehensive package, but they're somewhere in the middle. So I'm thinking that like, if I have this, imagine if you have this like catalog of service offerings where it's like, what do you want to do with your podcast episode? Blog post, audiograms, transcript, editing, whatever, video clips, that kind of thing. Check all that apply. And each one, it's just like an e-commerce functionality, right? Like each one is like adding a pair of socks to your cart. So you add the blog post, that's $250. You also want a transcript, that's another $50 or $1 a minute or something like that. And so I think that kind of self-service where it's like, I don't ever have to touch that. That notification gets funneled into Slack or into some kind of project management app. Somebody gets assigned to it, and then they're off and running and they do their thing. They turn around, deliver it to the client. Like I barely have to see that. It's really where it's like higher touch, and you want to actually watch or listen back to the episode, identify the interesting clips. Like that's really where I want to get involved, where it's this more thoughtful editorial kind of like polish being given to it versus just a straight repurposing where it's like, take this audio format and make it a blog post, or take this audio format and make it 3 Twitter threads that recap the key points or something like that. So I think that will be self-serve. And I think that's kind of the, what's it called? That's like the tripwire almost, I think is what people call it, where like you walk into this low ticket engagement, you have a good experience, you do that a couple more times, you get this brand affinity built up, and then you're like, hey, what happens if like I've been checking these 3 boxes for pretty much every episode I've been pushing out, can I just get on a subscription? Or like, how do I automate this so I don't have to come back every week and check these 3 boxes and pay you $500? Can I just pay you $1,500 this month and you do all these things for me, out of the gate? I'm thinking that might be it. It's like this intentional friction almost, where it's like, yeah, I'm doing it and I'm having a good experience, but I'm just sick of like coming in here every week after I record, checking 3 boxes and paying you $500. Can I just pay you $1,500 once and then just send you my files? And that's the thought anyway.
No, I think that's, and you can also see that like, someone just does one and you've got some automated follow-ups and that sort of stuff, but like someone's come back, they've done 2, 3, 4, reach out to them, right, and get them on an ongoing thing, because then then they're more committed, and then you can upsell them from there, and it's better for everybody. So I like that approach.
That's probably even something that with SPP, since they hook into Zapier, like I could probably say something like, when a customer lifetime value exceeds a certain dollar amount, then send me a notification and say, hey, whatever, Acme Corporation has spent more than $1,500 with you in the last 3 months. Why don't you reach out to them and try to upsell into something, and then just have a tasteful conversation around that? So I like that. I
like that.
It's kind of that whole concept of like higher operations support, so that you can get in there and build that, right? Because that all needs wired up, and you need to create like those service offerings and hook that up to the website and that kind of thing. So
exactly. Yeah, you got to build those. Got to build all the back end stuff is the hard work. And these businesses, right? It looks like, oh, it's easy, you just sell the thing, but there's a ton of operations in these businesses, man. That's what people don't see.
Yeah, well, that's the challenge of this. Like some days I wish I could just, I wish I would have figured some of this stuff out before I launch, because now you have to build the ship while you're sailing it almost. And it's like, and it's like, I still have to serve clients today in this kind of like piping environment where I'm managing tasks and projects and all that kind of stuff, but I want to build this new thing. And so I have to kind of do both in parallel, and it's exponentially harder. So I know you can't have all the answers out of the gate, but I would say like, I don't know, a lot of people advocate for just starting with spreadsheets and stuff, and I'm not necessarily against that, but man, if you have a good sense of like what it's going to look like to run your service business from the back end, I would launch later to get that house in order, because it's way harder to do, at least in my experience, to serve clients actively and try to build a better world for them to live in at the same time, right? Especially as a small company with just fractional support from contractors.
I think it's a trade-off because I've done both, and I've like in the past very much like built stuff first, mostly because like I'm a visual person. I get my hands dirty and I kind of see what it's going to look like and feel like and all that. But there's also a risk there of overbuilding, building stuff nobody wants, etc. So, I'm more of a like build, and I'm more talking from like a marketing perspective. And your feedback a couple weeks ago about like kind of like EditorNinja's top navigation, that sort of stuff. I'm figuring out like kind of how I tie it all together, because it's not like, oh, you're just buying proofreading, you're just buying this, you're buying like this is included. This is all within your subscription, right? These are just like the various things that we do. But I think just the one thing I would say there is a risk to building stuff, especially like getting software or building out software or whatever, before you really know what it is, which is why I like the spreadsheet approach at first. It does not scale, but you start to learn it, and then you kind of build that individual thing. This is the approach I take at both of my companies is, okay, this is getting, we have whatever, 20 documents a week being submitted, and this like assigning of and letting people prioritize things and all that, like that doesn't scale. So like we need to change the system, and so we're going to move to this other like type of setup, right? Like you're never going to get away from the having to keep on building and repairing the ship while you're sailing it. It's just that I think there's a balance there of not overbuilding too early before you've proved it out and before you've seen what is taking you a lot of time, right? Like that's the stuff that I automate, is stuff that's taking me a ton of, or hire for stuff that's taking me a ton of time.
Right. Yeah, totally agree. Especially if you have to build something custom. Like it's one thing for me to be able to take spp.co and just wire it up. Like that's one thing. But if I had to build some kind of like menu based, like a la carte ordering system from scratch, I definitely wouldn't do that before I have the demand for it. Right. And I want to have a great deal of confidence that somebody's actually going to use that before I invest that time and money. Cool, man. Maybe we'll call it there. I know you are out next week. You're going to do some speaking and going to kind of a conference or a retreat. So have a lot of fun there and learn a lot. I'm sure we'll get some of those insights downloaded to us when you get back for our next session.
Yeah, I'll be happy to share, man. And have fun there with the kids, and keep it on pushing into the summertime, man. It's a good time to kind of recharge a little bit, right? So I look forward to hearing how all that's going.
Cool, man. All right. Show notes and everything we talked about today are available at workingsessions.fm. And you can also submit a question for a future episode. And we will, as long as there's nothing distasteful in it, we will play it online, and then we will respond to you right there in the moment. So go ahead and drop one if you've got it.
Yep. We'll give you a shout out, and we would appreciate your questions and feedback. Thanks, everyone. Catch you next time.